Thanks for joining us this morning as we review the original 1968 version of The Planet of the Apes, otherwise known as...
Hey, baby, what is a beautiful statue like you doing in a place like this?
We're picking up statues now, but that is a good question because, the iconic final scene of this movie laid some groundwork. It's pretty cool. And if you don't know it, there's a little bit of trivia in there about who might have been involved in choosing that scene. Almost kind of gives you a kind of like a Twilight Zone feel, like it's like the ending of a Twilight Zone episode. We should probably judge this movie in its original context, in terms of its cultural context and theatrical and what they were able to get away with doing back in the day in 1968. Gosh, that's almost getting close to 60 years ago, right? I mean, at least it's over 50. We know that. So, contrary to popular opinion, I did not see this movie when it came out. I was too young. Given that the producers of this movie were capable of doing what they were capable of doing in terms of special effects, and given the timely questions that it raised,
Special effects, the nightmare feel.
Yeah, it did. The music really added to it too.
I'm talking about monkeys.
Oh, you're talking about the
apes. Holy cow!
Yeah, we should probably do a poll. What is scarier, clowns or apes? In terms,
I'm talking about these specific apes.
These ones? I don't know.
I think clowns would still win, though.
Yeah, I think hands down. So, what would you give this movie as a rating? Between 1 to 10.
All in all, I didn't think it was a bad one. I'd give it probably a 7.
Okay.
All in all.
Okay.
I'm not too sure if I like the whole message concept of evolution being built into it, but
okay. This was, I would give it, believe it or not, I would give it a 9 for its time. If this movie were to come out now, of course, it would probably rate a 4 or something like that. Definitely.
B.
It would be a B movie. It would. But they didn't.
There budget. Are YouTube videos that are higher quality.
You know what? The makeup was pretty good for the apes. I mean, they did a good job with that.
But like I said, there are YouTube videos out there that are done by freelancers that are of higher quality. But I'm saying if it was released now.
Right.
So.
Yeah. That would be
for the time period, no.
No, definitely for the time period. So it did raise some very good questions that would have been done. These were timely for the 1960s. And we're going to go over those in a bit when we get to our thematic review, talking about the themes of the movie. There's 6 of them that we're going to be covering. But we took a poll first. And in this poll, I was surprised with the turnout of this poll. When we first started getting the results, I thought, okay, that's kind of what I expect. And I figured we get, maybe 50 response to the poll. We got more. And I just took a snapshot of this just a few minutes ago. So this is fresh as opposed to this, the filming of this live stream. And the question asked, which of the Planet of the Apes movies was your favorite? 1986, 2001, or the recent series starting at 2011. And
I think the new ones are successes. That's normally not what you get
for a remake.
Yeah, for a remake,
especially a remake of a classic. And I would view this 1968's version as a classic. So what was interesting about this? Look at the 2001. It got the same rating as None. Oh man, show Mark Wahlberg some love here, guys. I didn't think it was that bad, but anyway, we do
different origin, different sort of style. I think it had its own twist. I think it's trying to give a different twist than what was in the original.
Yeah,
but in so doing, I think it changed some of the expectations that the viewer base had.
Right. Yeah. It's. I don't know if I got kind of mixed feelings about remaking older ones, especially their classics. Like I hope they never remake The Mask. I think The Mask was classic. with Jim Carrey. I mean, you can't.
I'd
don't
say
think you can up there.
99% of those remakes are really poorly done.
But maybe an exception would be the series.
Well, this would definitely be an exception.
Not the 2001 version,
not
right?
the 2001. Yeah, because I'm thinking the pitfalls that a lot of the remakes fall into is updating it for the current age, and that doesn't work.
Yeah. So if I'm glad that they did the remake they started earlier. If they would have started the remake this year, there would probably be it'd probably be the same thing, but it'd be a gender swap, race swap, and tell the same story.
It wouldn't much matter because again, this is not the same exact story. This is more like the remake's more like an origin story.
It is, and
so
that's
you could gender swap.
No. Yeah, I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about if they did today an exact remake of what it was, because that's what the style is now, right? You're just doing the same thing, but just put a chick in it, make it gay.
Yeah,
so
I think that is what the advantage of this one is. It wasn't a direct remake.
No.
It was adding on to the story earlier on without superseding the original. So in fact, there's references to the original in that one.
Correct. So moving forward, we are going to be hitting spoiler section. If you're waiting to see this, you didn't want to pay for movie theater tickets, and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to wait until a couple more years, maybe before I see the movie. Dude, you waited a long time.
That's some serious patience.
Yeah. So going forward from here, it's going to be spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the movie, check it out if you want, or check out the other ones. But the big twist at the end, I think everybody pretty much knows.
That's been spoiled.
Just look at the thumbnail for this video, and you'll get the clue. But it's probably good to go over a review of the plot. In 1968 film, The Planet of the Apes, a crew of astronauts led by Colonel George Taylor, played by Charles, crash lands on a mysterious planet in the distant future. To their shock, they discover that the planet is inhabited by highly intelligent apes who dominate the humans and enslave them. As Taylor and his crew grapple with the surreal, oppressive reality of his upside-down world, they are captured by the apes and subjected to scientific experimentation and scrutiny. Taylor, distinguished by his ability to speak, becomes a curiosity and a threat to the ape society and their established order, which views humans as inferior beings. Throughout their captivity, Taylor forms a bond with two sympathetic chimpanzees, Dr. Zira, played by Kim Hunter, and Cornelius, played by Roddy Riddell, who challenge the prevailing ape orthodoxy and advocate for the right of dignity of humans. As Taylor navigates the complex social dynamics of ape civilization, he uncovers the shocking truths about the planet's history and the origins of its starkly divided society. His quest for freedom and understanding leads him to confront Dr. Zaius. In a stunning climax, Taylor discovers the ruins of Statue of Liberty buried in the sand, revealing that the planet he has been exploring is actually Earth, devastated by nuclear war and reclaimed by evolved apes. The film's iconic final scene, in which Taylor realizes the tragic fate of his own species, serves as a powerful commentary on the dangerous hubris, the fragility of civilization, and the enduring struggle for freedom and survival. Dun dun dun.
I actually had that time pretty well.
Think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. It took a while. Yes, I was up late last night working on this. So let's look at the franchise. This was very successful when it first came out, and it is an iconic science fiction film. You know, the science fiction part. I mean, you got some guys going to space, going back, right? And then there's the whole what if. This is speculative fiction, which I love, and that's why I write this kind of stuff. The first one came out in 1968, and you basically saw a summary of that. And why am I missing
Again, this looks like nightmare
It
fuel.
does, man. It cuts
This
out
looks like a horror film.
Yeah, I know for sure. I put those in last night. Okay, so the first poster is missing, but then you have it followed by following the 1968 film. You have the Beneath the Planet of the Apes in 1970. This sole survivor of an interplanetary rescue mission searches for the only survivor of the previous expedition. He discovers a planet ruled by apes and an underground city run by telepathic humans. And this is a classic 1960s trope to throw
telepathic
in
humans.
the telepathy, that type of psychic stuff. So in the original Planet of the Apes got a rating of 8. This one, unfortunately, bowed down to a 6. So they came out with another one, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, a year later. The world is shocked by the appearance of 3 talking chimpanzees who arrive mysteriously in a U.S. spacecraft. They become the toast of society, but one man believes them to be a threat to the human race. So
they inverted it.
They inverted it. Guess who comes to dinner? Yes.
As long as you don't have them for dinner, you should be fine.
Yeah, I just realized that could be taken as a racist thing, and I did not mean that at all. In 1972, so that one had a rating of 6.3. So we're getting a little bit better. In 1972, Conquest of the Apes came out. Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. In a futuristic world that has embraced apes slavery, Caesar, the son of the late Simians, Cornelius and Zera, surfaces after almost 20 years of hiding out from the authorities and prepares for slave revolt against humanity. And so this is a twist. They retconned the original one in saying that, it wasn't nuclear war that wiped out the human race, which was real, in everybody's minds in the 1960s. This was instead humans had enslaved. So now we're starting to get closer to
at least
the newer version that we have, right? So they have enslaved all the apes as pets, because I think pets were wiped out by some disease brought back from space. So we didn't have any dogs and cats. So we all had a bunch of 800-pound gorillas as our pets. Good luck on that, right? And so then there's a result because they gained some sort of extra sentience in the whole process. Got a 6.1 as a rating. And then 1973, yay, 70s. Battle for the Planet of the Apes came out, and this was the last one, and we could all be a little bit grateful because it got a rating of 5.4. We're just going down.
It went down.
That's right. 10 years after the worldwide series of ape revolutions and a brutal nuclear war among humans. Oh, so they're bringing back the nuclear war now.
Yeah. Gotta get back.
That's right. Okay.
We're getting closer to
adding a boat.
Period.
Caesar must protect survivors of both species from an insidious human cult and malicious ape-like faction. So you can see how this all comes together with this in bringing these series, and it kind of, you can see where the storyline kind of builds on it. Okay, I could see this. Maybe the execution of the films was a little bit campy. Yeah, check them out on your own if you like. I remember seeing some of these as a kid.
I wouldn't recommend it. It seems to not be, at least in my book, it would be a little scarring.
It wasn't too bad. So we had
monkeys are creepy.
I grew up in Southern California, the Los Angeles area, and it can be a bit of a concrete jungle there. So one of the places that you can escape is the beach. And another place that we found cuddled away was a place called Malibu State Park. Before it became a park, and it was in the hills before you get to the if you're going to go out to like the beach on Zuma Beach, you would go through the hills, the winding hills, to be able to get there. Well, there's one little dinky road that goes off to the side, and it goes to a place called Malibu State Park that used to be owned by 20th Century Fox. And they filmed all sorts of things there. They filmed the outdoor scenes of Planet of the Apes. They filmed MASH, 4077 MASH. When the helicopter comes over the edge, you can see that one of the hills there. Say, oh, that's where the helicopter was. They also filmed the miniseries Roots that was there. When I went there as a kid, they still had some of the props there. They still had the props for roots because they had a facade of a house there, and in the back you had the plantation where you had fake plants were in the ground, and we got pictures of all of us kids pulling. No one else was there. It wasn't a tourist spot. It's only because my uncle had access to be able to get in there. They were able to see. It was pretty cool. And they had this one thing that was like a spaceship, a small little capsule that we crawled in around and played with as kids. Well, that was used in the Planet of the Apes. And there's some of the scenes here. You look at that and say, okay, that's Southern California. This movie was also filmed in around Lake Powell. That's where the ship went down when they originally sank, and that's in Arizona. And a lot of the desert type of scenes were filmed there. So it was a lower budget, and they were able to, they had to go local to pick this up. Originally, we were talking about the Statue of Liberty scene being sort of a Twilight Zone thing. Do you know why it was Twilight Zone? Like?
Oh, no, I'm not 100% sure. I know you're going for it. I see it in the... We
talked about this earlier, so you're going.
I see in the list of icons to pull up yet.
Yes.
Imagery.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to pull this up. Yeah, this guy, Rod Serling, who has been on our own videos that we've had, Council of Absurdia, in his younger version. He went back in time and then showed up on ours. But this is Rod Serling. And he was indeed involved in this. He was he by the way, he wrote like about half of the original Twilight Zone episodes and co-wrote the original screenplay for the Planet of the Apes based on a book by French author Pierre Boulle. And but they had to alter his screenplay because Rod Serling's concept of a technologically advanced society of apes was too costly to produce. Now, in today's era, with CGI, and they put $100 million, $120, $150 million, $200 million into a movie, you could do that. But back in the late 60s, no, that was not something that was possible. So they altered it and they made it more primitive and did away some things. But it was Rod Serling's idea to have the Statue of Liberty at the end. So we're talking about a theatrical review here, just in terms of theatrics, how the movie was put together and everything, plot, any plot holes. What are your thoughts?
I'd say there are some definite sort of plot holes. I say the reason for them to go to this planet out there, spend, I forget, over 1,000 years going to this new planet, wasn't really clear why they were doing it.
No.
I know that it was like, we're here for science and we're going to come back. Well, our return journey is no longer happening. I'm like, it took you that long to get out here? Now, if you did a return journey, that'd be over 2,000 years since you left. You think anyone on Earth's going to care? No. Think 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Not going to care very much. So that was a bit of an issue. Now, they were there to colonize.
What? Yeah. How do you know that they were there to colonize?
They did make a reference to like, hey, we're here to, colonize. So they're going to establish a colony here. They brought one woman. Yeah. And she did.
She's dead. Yeah.
She
okay. So I guess if you really do want to have a lot of babies and don't worry about too much about inbreeding later, you would have one guy and several women, right? The ratio would be the opposite of
well, actually, ideally, you would have one guy, because they only sent 4, which I'm still not sure why.
I think it would have been that 4. These would have been the first ones coming. Check out the planet, is inhabitable and stuff like that. That's what we use probes for right now, right? So
yes. So
you check it, send it out, send these people out. They respond by radio to say, hey, everything looks good. Don't worry about. Don't pay attention to the fact that you don't have faster than light communication. So it's going to take you, if it took you 2,000 years to get there and you're going close to the speed of light, then that's why there was the whole temporal shift there. So they must have been going closer to the speed of light. How long is it going to take to get a message back to Earth? Say, everything looks good, guys. You can pack your bags and come join us.
Even if it was instantaneous communication, even if they had instantaneous communication.
Yeah.
Right back to Earth immediately. Hey, we're here. Yeah, go ahead and send the next group.
It's going to take a while.
You're going to be dead before this next group gets there.
Right,
So
because
you're it.
the group coming can be in suspended animation. These first guys would not. So that really didn't make a whole lot of sense with
So ideally, you would have if you're only sending 4 people, which again is stupid. But if you're only sending 4 people, then you'd have two guys and 2 gals, because then you have backups. You just got primary and a backup, just in case something happens and one of your guys dies. You're not up a creek without a paddle.
All right. So that was, I guess you would call that a movie sin or something like that, or a plot hole. That was it wasn't very clear on what they were there for, right?
It wasn't very clear, and on top of that, it definitely, now, granted, this doesn't play into the entire film because it's mostly focused around one of the characters, but the interplay between the 3 guys, it's like, did they just like stick random individuals in this pod and ship them out? It wasn't a cohesive like team. They didn't have their objective to accomplish. It's very clear they haven't been working much together. They're at each other's throats immediately.
Right.
They have personalities that contradict each other left and right, and even their motivations for why they're doing what they're doing, each one is completely different. Now, that might have been by design. It just doesn't work very well into a team dynamic, into making me believe that these were a team.
Well, one thing to think about too is that this is 1968, and if I understand the timing correctly, I didn't check this to see the release date versus the first moon landing. This is during the space race between the U.S. and the Soviets, and there is a lot of hype going on with, I should say hype, a lot of expectation, a lot of enthusiasm and hope for what's happening. There was hope then that we would have the conflict that we have then with the Soviets in the Cold War and everything. Maybe if we reach out to the stars in an effort of brotherhood and peace, we will be able to resolve our problems, come together and say, okay, this is all just stupid. Let's just find common ground and make this techno society of the future, having no idea about what was coming down the pike with Google and Facebook and Twitter and all the others, right?
Yep.
So there was hope that was going to be happening, this utopia, this idea that was, and there was, we look back and say, oh, we use probes, we do all these different things. Back then was a big question mark. They wouldn't have done it. So the audience and the filmmakers both had not really thought this through very well, I don't think.
That, and I guess there's and obviously there were different expectations of movies.
Yeah.
Because obviously this did fantastic.
Yeah.
It became a huge success, inspiring a whole lot of scenes of a half-destroyed Statue of Liberty in places. So the movie itself was a success, even though there's some really big plot holes. Definitely some different styles of recording, where you have long stretches of just seeing people travel.
Implying that the pacing of the movie was very slow, but that would have been consistent with a lot of the other movies.
Yeah, that's again a style for an older time period,
right? That
we don't have boom, 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 action, action, action all the time. There's slow bits, and then there are fast bits.
So there's other things like the apes speak English. Okay.
I can ignore that.
This is supposed to be 2,000 years.
I'll write it off.
No, I don't know. I guess I would go for a harder science fiction on this. I would like to say, okay, come on, guys. If you're that far back, you would do that. Now, I would say that this is all being used to set up. Just think of this as a big Twilight Zone episode. This is all being used to set up the question about societal conflict. What are human beings? What is man that you were mindful of him, or the son of man that you made him? That's one of the things they asked about environmentalism, about nuclear wars, about one group of people subjugating another group of people. Also about science versus creation. All these are themes that we're going to get to later. This movie was used to set this up. It's a platform to ask these questions, and it was done in typical Twilight Zone style.
Yeah.
So I thought in
No,
terms of that, if you think about it in that way, you can understand where things are coming from theatrically.
yes, and I'd say that's definitely along the styles of the old Twilight Zone. And if you went in the mind, this is Planet of the Apes, Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot better, actually.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So there's a couple of
better
comments here I
show.
want to bring up. One from Thomas Hall. Not that one. Filming in LA with a low budget, definitely different times.
Yeah, times have changed.
You could see there's a lot of landmarks in the LA area that were used for older films. I don't think you see that as much as what you do now.
No.
There's a lot of stuff that's filmed outside of the US, outside of that region, and so forth. So.
Well, that, and they're very strict on what goes into the backgrounds now compared to back then. They're very specific on, okay, if this is supposed to be in LA, we're going to make it look like it's in LA. Or if it's supposed to be in New York, even though we're recording in, let's say, Cleveland, Ohio, we'll make it look like it's there. So, yeah, they you don't get as many like, oh yeah, cool, I know exactly where that's at.
Right.
You get that occasionally, but not as much as you used to.
Thematic review. The 1968 film Planet of the Apes explores several themes, including, like we just said, science versus religion, prejudice and discrimination, what it means to be human, an existential crisis, power and oppression, and environmentalism. A lot of these themes were top of people's minds in the 1960s. This was during a tumultuous time in our history. There was the Vietnam War that was going on. You had a lot of rebellious teen movements type of thing. Music had definitely changed the scene. The first one we can look at is science and religion. The conflict between scientific advancement and the religious belief is a recurring theme in the film quite a bit. And this is probably one of the bigger ones that is here. The discovery of a planet ruled by intelligent apes challenges traditional religious beliefs about the origins of humanity and its place of humans in the universe. So in terms of the audience watching this, there would be like, what would we do? And that's addressed directly in the film. If one of the other things too is that in terms of the main character Taylor, he is pointed out as being possibly a missing link between humans. I mean, the original, because they looked at humans as being original primates and then
evolving into apes,
the evolved version, right? And so they're pointing at this astronaut Taylor, saying, "Hey, he's the missing link, basically." If he was the missing link, then the sacred scrolls would not be worth their parchment. And using terms like sacred truths of religion, that God has endowed apes with intelligence. Their sacred writings were threatened by the existence of an intelligent human and the existing of pre-existing culture in the Forbidden Zone, a culture that dated before the sacred writings. So let's take a look at a scene to see where this comes out in the movie.
Learned judges, my case is simple. It is based on our first article of faith, that the Almighty created the ape in his own image, that he gave him a soul and a mind, that he set him apart from the beasts of the jungle and made him the lord of the planet. These sacred truths are self-evident. The proper study of apes is apes. But certain young cynics have chosen to study man. Yes, perverted scientists who advance an insidious theory called evolution.
So these are the challenges that are going back and forth in this film. And it's almost as if religion or Christianity is on trial itself during this time.
So you've got those sort of parallels. Again, I find this very alien, because knowing history, knowing that the reason we have science the way we have it now is because of Christianity.
And that was the argument I was going to give in response to this. This question alone would cover more, this whole debate would cover more than what this live stream. In fact, it probably covers several live streams. but it doesn't take too much to look at the argument of science versus religion. That doesn't have to be antagonistic. The same God who created the universe is the same God who wrote the Bible. So if you look at the universe, if you observe and you come to conclusions, let observe the universe as it is. Do science as it is. Research, do your Bible studies as they are. They shouldn't conflict. And if they do, then maybe you're looking at one or the other incorrectly. But look at it with open eyes.
Yeah, keep in mind that science is the pursuit of the truth.
Right.
Not the truth itself, not giving you all the answers, just pursuing. That's why it changes all the time. That's why it flip-flops back and forth, because they go through different theories. And it's like, well, does this one fit well? Oh, no, this one fits better. So we need to switch to this perspective here, where the Bible is the truth. It is what's there. And we look back at the founders of science, go back to the original people. We got Isaac Newton as well as many others. Am I cutting ahead?
You are.
Ahead.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
That's
Sorry.
okay. That's good. But I gotta say, we gotta
We'll
be
leave
careful,
that for
because when we took a look at like the whole question with Galileo and saying that he was being told, hey, don't say this stuff, it's going against the Bible. It was because, as biblical scholars, we made a mistake of taking the Copernican, I believe it's a Copernican view of the having the Earth as the center of the universe, the center of the solar system, and so forth. Taking that view, Ptolemaic, sorry, that was the Ptolemaic view. Copernicus came later. Taking the Ptolemaic view of the Earth being the center of the universe and saying that is reality. That's the way things are. We're going to follow the science. There you go, right? I'm going to follow the science, believe the science, which is a stupid statement, because science is actually based more on questioning and not faith. And if you believe the science, you're making a religion out of it. But that's what they did. They took that scientific view of the day and said, see, the Bible proves that the Earth is the center of the universe.
Galileo didn't get in trouble for that anyway.
What did he get in trouble for?
He got in trouble for making fun of the Pope.
Oh, well,
the Pope said, "Hey, dude, you might want to tone it down a little bit. We're not going to stop you from pursuing this solar-centered. We don't necessarily agree with it, but we're not going to stop you from pursuing it. Just tone it down." And then, I forget if it was a paper or something he wrote where he basically made a story in it and made the Pope as this like bumbling idiot.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, okay, dude, now we're bringing down the hammer. So it wasn't so much his idea that, the sun is the center of the solar system. In fact, he made fun of the Pope afterwards.
Oops.
That's the funny part. That's something that a lot of people get wrong. It's like, no, he's not in trouble for that. He was in trouble for making fun of the Pope.
So I'm going to put up a couple of comments here before I get to the conclusion of this section. It says, science watches what God does. Yes. Yep. And then imagine making religion out of science.
Very dangerous.
I think we just saw that in a recent global event, shall we say. We turned science into a religion and said, you just got to believe it. Just got to believe it. Just got to believe it. No,
it didn't do very well.
You don't.
That fell apart quickly.
Yeah. So that's the beauty of science, is asking questions, poking at, keep poking at it, make sure that there's, and then you can eventually develop go from hypothesis to theory, because it's something that's more solid. But even then, it's still kind of on the table of questions.
Well, yeah, if science becomes God and everything is in the pursuit of science, making science better, seeking out more and more knowledge, you eventually get to a point, if you take that to its logical conclusion, you get to the point where humanity isn't valuable because it's just one of the many animals. And if you can do animal experiments, why not do human experiments? Why not? These are just more animals, right?
So from a moral standpoint, you could end up with the devaluing of human life.
And
I guess you could say that, but you could still have secular ethics in it, saying that there are some rules that shouldn't be.
I know you could put forth saying, hey, there are some rules that shouldn't be crossed. But again, what are those rules founded on other than your own perspective on it? And once you remove it to your own perspective being the absolute authority on morality, who's to say your perspective is more valid than or more valuable than my perspective, which humanity isn't, and I can go ahead and do those human experiments by force without consent. It ends up being an issue if you have an absolute authority that everyone is accountable to, i.e. God, and he is the one who dictates morality, and he's the one who made humanity in his image, and because of that alone, we have value. Then it changes.
Yes, if you have, you could have. This is something that's often forgotten for people who say it would just be purely secular, purely just follow the science. Is it possible to have a intellectual, scientifically based society that just science, just industrial, just boom, boom, boom? We're going to forget about God. We're just going to do it this way. Is it possible to have that go off the rails into all sorts of immorality? I think you look back at the 20th century and you'd see at least 2 institutions that were godless that did end up that way.
Oh, there are multiple.
Well, I'm talking about major institutions communism and Nazism. There's some question about is Nazism atheistic, and I would say if you look at Adolf Hitler, what Hitler was saying, yes, he was. I mean, he would maybe use some claims about Jews killing Jesus, but I don't know if he ever made those claims. I don't remember. What I do remember hearing a lot about and a lot of articles on is his absolute love for Islam. Yeah, he did have that Islam too. So you have these, especially communism, saying that religion is the opiate of the people. You take God out of the picture. You just have pure, I wouldn't even say secularism with science by itself. Without God, you can get imbalanced with it. So I'm going to take a quick look at some of the chats here. And science is supposed to be a way of discovery, not a belief system. That's what Adam said. And Villainous added, life is an endothermic chemical reaction. Dookie dookie.
Well, if it's all chemical based, actually, if you're looking from a purely just secular look at humanity, we're just basically advanced computers that are just biological computers that are chemically based. I mean, instead of just ones and zeros, we just have chemicals.
We're a cosmic accident, product of a mindless mud hole. Maybe hard to replicate someplace, but you know what? It doesn't really have any lasting significance and value. So it's as worthless as anything else.
Just stardust.
Adam added, scientifically, we don't even know what life is. It certainly isn't a chemical reaction. The result of life is observable, but not life itself. So there are some criteria that you can put to say whether something is alive or not. Maybe replication, something that replicates, something that I've heard breathing. But even then, what about viruses? What about is something that doesn't necessarily have some kind of breathing mechanism involved with it? How do you do that? So I guess it would be a question. Even a bigger question would be defining consciousness.
Yes.
How do you define that? Villainous added, he said, well, 18 months into COVID, Australian government decided to shoot rubber bullets into a crowd of mom and dad protesters. So much for science running everything.
Yeah, didn't take long.
Yeah.
Didn't take long for science to become very violent.
That was scary. And you can forget about whatever your rights are because that gets shelved. So I think probably one of the biggest arguments here would be science versus religion. They don't need to be antagonistic. In fact, some of the top scientists, not necessarily being Christian, but believing in God, believing in a deity, and then we can define redefine what that actually means. But there's a list of 10 scientists they have here, and these are not just nobodies. These are big names throughout. One particular big name, which I have an attachment to. You have Nicholas Copernicus, who did do the heliocentric solar system. Nicholas Copernicus, Sir Francis Bacon, Johannes Kepler, Galileo Galilei, Rene Descartes. I think therefore I am, and you can thank him for all the graphing you had to do in school with the XY coordinate system. Thank you, Rene Descartes. Pascal, Isaac Newton, yay, Robert Boyle, Max Planck, and Albert Einstein. All of them believed in God. If you took these people off and say they're fanatics, they're idiots for believing in God or believing in a deity, then you lose a huge, huge part of science. And yes, these guys and women, put women in there too, were all thinking individuals who had a clear mind, who could conceive of these things. And so you can't throw these people out.
And those that are Christian who are on the list were very clear on why they were even doing science to begin with.
Yeah.
It was in a pursuit of knowing the creator, the pursuit of knowing God. So yeah, that's pretty showing.
Pretty important. Second theme to deal with in this movie was prejudice and discrimination. The portrayal of apes as the dominant species of humans as subservient raises questions about race relations and social hierarchy. The film offers commentary on social issues such as prejudice and discrimination. There's a lot of animal rights themes during this movie, a lot of turn of phrases. And one of those we can see in this clip.
Oh, don't be silly. He's perfectly tame.
They're all tame until they take a chunk out of you.
Well, Bright Eyes, is our throat feeling better? It still hurts, doesn't it?
See? He keeps pretending he can talk.
That Bright Eyes is remarkable. He keeps trying to form words.
You know what they say. Human see, human do.
So there's a lot of different phrases like that are used in there. They carry diseases. Watch out for them. They're only good for experimentation. Doubt we can learn anything from them. Trying to prove man can be domesticated. So so they turned this on the head. This whole thing was, like a Twilight Zone episode, turning on its head that monkeys then are put in the position of what lower primates, apes would be in this situation, putting them in zoos, experimenting on them, things like that. So what happens? So what does the Bible say about this? Galatians 3:28. There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. This verse emphasizes the equality among people, among Christians, regardless of race, social status, or gender. So if we're all one in Christ, and I think this would also extend towards non-Christian. The idea is, as a group of believers, all those are stripped away. All those other categories are gone. In Acts 10:34 and 35, Peter says, he began to speak. Now I realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism, but accepts from every nation one who fears him and does what is right. In other words, if you follow God, it doesn't matter what your racial or ethnic background is, we're all one in Christ. So that in that regard, this film is addressing prejudice and discrimination based on race. And prejudice and discrimination doesn't always have to be based on race. It can be based on height, how high, how tall you are, and things like that. But this does address that part.
You need to let it go.
What?
The fact they didn't choose you for the basketball teams, for the NBA. I mean, seriously.
Yes.
This whole height thing, you need to let it go.
I admit it. Being 8'6" is a detriment. You do hit your head on the basket when you're out there playing. So enough concussions. They did not want to have any kind of medical issues with me again. So the liability, they said, get out of here, buddy. you're gonna be a lawsuit. So I had to leave the court.
Another they did touch on this in a different way as well, discrimination, because they mention about chimpanzees being discriminated against.
Oh,
Or
one
else
race
it's-
over another.
Yeah, run race. Like there's, discriminations, segregation's gone, chimpanzees and orangutans.
Yeah.
And of course, the two people that are there supporting them are both chimpanzees.
Right.
And then the whole tribunal, as we've seen, were orangutans.
Right.
Everything else was orangutan.
Yeah, that was there too.
So-
Kind of subtle, but yes.
It was subtle. It was hinted to, but it was also an interesting little. I found it to be an interesting little snippet they put in there because that was attention to detail.
It was. Theme number 3. What does it mean to be human? Through the reversal of roles between humans and apes, the film examines the essence of human nature and the capacity to do for both intelligence and brutality. It prompts the viewer to reflect on what it means to be human and the potential consequences of our actions. It's a sad tale of the hubris of man, a warning that man is a killer of his brother and a maker of deserts. Could we coexist with other species, other sentient species?
Other sentient species? Probably not. We'd end up killing each other.
I think probably not. I think with human fallen human nature, the
man.
way it is now, it's not the original human nature, but fallen human nature. I think we look at what we do to each other. I can imagine if we had another, maybe like Neanderthal or sentient apes, what would happen then? I don't think it would end very well.
No.
It wouldn't. So, what does the Bible say about our own nature in this regard? Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" And this verse highlights the nature of human and fallen nature and the propensity of deceit and wickedness. Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." Romans 7:18 through 19 says, "For I know that the good itself does not dwell in me, that is my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do. This I keep on doing." So talking about human nature and where we are, it's a sad, sorry state. And the only way that we can get out of it is to become a new creature, a new creation. And so there's a couple of I don't know if you say meme or iconic scenes in this movie. And one is where he is, the main character, Taylor, is being captured and threatened by the apes. And he finally speaks in here. And what he says, "Now, cover your children's ears. We have some foul language afoot."
You're lying, George. Oh,
Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
you really think I ought to swear? Yes, definitely.
I was a little confused there at the beginning. I was like, wait, hold on.
Okay, that
Did
was
you get the wrong clip?
Theme number 4, existentialism. Planet of the Apes explores existential themes such as alienation, isolation, search for meaning, and seemingly indifferent universe. The protagonist, Taylor, grapples with his own existential crisis as he confronts the absurdity of his situation. Imagine this. You go to another planet. You've been chosen to go on this mission. You've been selected and trained, and you go into hypersleep, and you come out, and here with the other astronauts, we're talking about instrumentation and, checking to see if the soil is good or is there life on this other planet. And then you're alone. Your crew has been wiped out. You're the sole survivor, or at least cognizant survivor. And this planet is not only hostile, but knowingly hostile against you. You are alone. 2,000 years it took you to get to this planet. There is no way that you're going to even get a message out to people what this is like. Imagine, what would you do in a situation like that?
I don't know. That would be rough. Try to rebuild some sort of grasp. I mean, he does have humanity there. There's something genetic going on that's not allowing the humans to speak. They do mention that humanity has every ability to speak physically. It's just some sort of mental block or something happening there. Now, humanity, there are some interesting situations that come up in there that might have been hid later on. I've actually not watched the older movies, the ones that came out after this one. I'm only familiar with the first one. But there is a section where he writes on the ground and the other humans come over and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Start covering it up. And that ends up into a big fight. So it's a question of, do the other humans actually understand what is going on?
Yeah.
And because of that, they don't want to let the apes know that they are intelligent, that they can talk, that they can engage. And they're basically just all taking a vow of silence. Or they're all, like you referenced later on in another movie about them being telepathic. Are they just all telepathic and they just choose
He can't
not
hear
to
them.
each?
He can't hear them.
He can't hear them. They're all being able to speak telepathically to each other. If they are, though, you'd have an much more advanced society, at least equivalent to the apes, I would expect. Now, they could have like a super society underneath the ground, which I don't know. I haven't watched that
Beneath the
movie yet.
Planet of the Apes. That's another one. So it's almost reminiscent of Stargate. Remember that one scene in Stargate where they start to draw on the ground, Daniel? Doctor,
because it's forbidden.
Yeah, and he starts drawing down. No. They now they're able to speak, but they can't have writing because
no writing at all.
Ra is suppressing them and keeping them more primitive, and he's forbidden writing because the last time they had that, there was an uprising and things like that, right?
Yep.
So, but it didn't go anywhere with that in the movie.
Nope.
You're right. If she has the intelligence to recognize writing, and he's not just scribbling in the desert on the ground, then you know that she can recognize writing. The apes do it, and they know that they shouldn't, right?
Yeah, they have that. They have it's not just the companion that was with him at the time. It was one of the other guys saw what he's doing, comes over and starts covering up. Now you could just say that they were just messing around and he was just trying to cover it up. Maybe they didn't think that far through, but I was looking at that saying, this looks like they know what is going on here and they're trying to cover it up.
So back to the original question about the existential crisis of being alone there, you can say, well, he wasn't really alone. He did have these other humans. And there was the possibility of, hey, he's got the best looking girl in the crowd who's like kind of hanging out with him. Maybe he can get something started. Maybe he can escape from the apes with all these humans and they can re-establish society. Maybe there's something like that. You do have a hope for the future, but you are alone. So the question is, here, you're not really alone. That you do have hope. In John 14:6, it says, Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father but by me. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. In Matthew 28:20, surely I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. So if you're a Christian in this kind of situation, you're alone on this hostile planet, you realize that you are actually not alone. And there is hope that would be able to bring you through. And then, of course, there is the hope also of maybe reestablishing that. Or you can go absolutely crazy under these circumstances.
That was just such an odd situation.
Laugh.
That was what
like,
the heck?
They zoom up on him and it is like, what? He's laughing because the other guy put a flag there.
Put a little American flag up
as a memorial for the other fallen astronaut. I think, dude, why are you laughing at these?
That was his reaction. It's like,
yeah,
what?
It's like,
what?
You just lost a crew member and you're laughing at him. Charleston Heston, I don't know if I like you that much. So taking a look at the comments here, Callum said, Breaking Bad has a scene where the character said science can't examine the approximate 10% of the body. It reminds us that science can't account for logic, moral ought, I think he meant to say moral thought, free will, and more. Yeah, there's a lot of things that science can answer. And I was once under the impression that given enough parameters about, I was just talking in terms of purely physics. If I know the speed and position, the velocity, position, and temperature, and enough parameters of a certain system, I can determine what that system is going to be like in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 years. That you could determine that. The problem is, and maybe not so much on the macro level, but on the micro level, scientists did used to believe that you can, the scientific determinism, you can determine this. It is going to give us the answer for everything. We just have to ask the right question or put in the right formula or make the right model. If we have the right model, we will do that. COVID. So the answer actually is no. Heisenberg said at some point, you cannot know both the position and velocity of subatomic particles. I think he was talking specifically about electrons. Because when you find out one, you can't do the other, and vice versa. So there gets to be a point where we cannot answer everything through science. You know, it all eventually, I wouldn't say it falls apart, but there's a limit. And I think that's another thing that this movie brings up is the hubris of the human race, to think that we will rise and make our Tower of Babel. We do have the answer to everything. The answer is no, you don't. There's a limit to what we can do. We can do a lot, and we can do a lot more in the future given certain technologies. Yeah, I hope to see that, but not everything. And I think also with the advance of each technology, there's the advance of unintended consequences that we have.
We do have the answer.
What is that?
Thomas Hall just gave it to you.
That's what you were laughing at.
Yes.
All right, Thomas Hall, give us the answer to life. The universe and everything.
42.
There we go. Now if we just figure out what the 42 means, we'll be fine.
You got to figure out what the actual question is to begin with.
I'm going to go ask some mice. The next thing that we would look at is environmentalism. Now, this was a big part of the movie, and is also a big question during the 1960s with the early, I guess, a more modern environmentalist movement, which does have some good grounding, but can go way off the rails with some of the things. The desolate landscape in the movie around this Lake Powell, the desolate landscape of the planet inhabited by the apes serves as a cautionary tale about the environmental degradation and the consequences of human neglect and exploitation of the natural world. Now, what does the Bible say about this? Should we pay attention at all to this? Is this just liberal fluff that we shouldn't be involved in trying to take care of the world around us, or not?
Well, there's multiple layers to that. If you're just saying in general, should we take care of the world? Well, yes, we were made as stewards. That was kind of our first job, was to steward this world. And a lot of the theories nowadays about climate change, that they've changed so many times, from global cooling, which was a thing, which they would have been worried about in this time period. Actually, at the beginning, in the first movie, would have been some of those passed around, was global cooling at the time. Then you had global warming. Now you have just climate change. Now climate catastrophe. So that whole evolution there, I think Earth goes through cycles repeatedly, and we shouldn't panic on every little thing, but we should also be mindful in keeping our trash to ourselves.
Yeah. So let's look at what the Bible says about this. In Genesis 2:15, the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work and take care of it. This verse emphasizes humanity's role in the stewardship of God's creation with the responsibility to care and preserve the environment. I think there really is something to be said about just stewards, to take care of the environments. Thinking about the old Boy Scouts, when the Boy Scouts were really around. Were you involved with the Boy Scouts at all? And they had the leave no trace. When you go camping, you leave no trace.
Yep, leave no trace. You fluff the duff.
Okay, so you you come to a situation, maybe a campground, or you're maybe hiking or something like that, you leave it the way that you found it.
Or better.
Right. And so there is kind of this idea of stewardship that we do have with the world. We are supposed to take care of it and cultivate and tend, but not so much to an extreme where we worship it, where we kill people for some environmental cause or so forth. In Revelation 11:18, it says, "The nations were angry, and your wrath has come. The time has come for judging the dead and for rewarding your servants, the prophets, and your people who revere your name, both great and small, and for destroying those who destroy the earth." So there is something to be said about those who are just wanton destruction. So we've got to be careful, don't pollute, be conservative with the energy and stuff like that, but don't go flipping nuts on this and make a religion out of it.
We also have evidence that there has been massive global changes that have not really been affected by humanity as much.
Right.
Definitely not with like carbon emissions stuff. We go back actually to the Bible and look at the Promised Land, flowing with milk and honey. Have you looked at the Middle East? That would not be how I would describe the land currently in its current position. There's definitely evidence that during that time period, it was much more lush, much more flowing with milk and honey. Even Egypt has had a lot more fertile time periods beforehand with the population due to the amount of food they can produce.
Right.
So, yeah, there has been changes. Yes, the earth goes through ebbs and flows. We should still be responsible for our own trash and trying to keep our areas clean.
The sixth thing that we could look at would be power and oppression. The film depicts a society where power is wielded unjustly by those in authority, leading to oppression and exploitation of the powerless. It raises questions about the abuse of power and the importance of resistance against tyranny. Now, I got to be careful about this because with modern Marxism, we have they've shifted from the working class and the owners of the factories and the workers, and it's shifted just to a general oppressed versus the oppressors. And we look at it in terms of race, we look at it in terms of different parts of our society oppressing others. And that form of Marxism can twist this type of thing, but it still does a good argument to say those in power need to be very careful in how they wield it because it can be destroyed. So here's another video clip, and this is at the end of the movie where they're talking about the hubris of human beings in making changes to the world around them.
Reach into my pocket. Read to him the 29th scroll, 6th verse.
Beware the beast man, for he is the devil's pawn. Alone among God's primates, he kills for sport, or lust, or greed. Yea, he will murder his brother to possess his brother's land. Let him not breed in great numbers, for he will make a desert of his home and yours. Shun him. Drive him back into his jungle lair, for he is the harbinger of death.
True. It could be true. Micah 6:8 says, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God." Isaiah 1:17, "Learn to do what is right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, and plead the cause of the widow." So overall, I would say the Planet of the Apes, 1968 version, is a thought-provoking film that explores the complex themes related to society, humanity, the human condition, and inviting viewers to contemplate on the implications of their own actions and beliefs. Dun, dun, dun. Any last comments?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. All in all.
Okay. I do have one last comment I want to show from one of the viewers here. Callum said, perhaps Heston's character meant to be laughing at losing out of losing sanity. It could have
Definitely comes across as him losing his marbles.
But that was
they haven't got very far in the.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
They just literally got to the land, and he's already lost his marbles. Oh boy!
I think it probably would have been fitting later on, and then maybe he has he reevaluates his situation and says, okay, it does look hopeless, but there are some other things I can do about this. I think I probably would have put that maniacal laugh later in the movie. So we have something that's coming up that I wanted to ask you as the viewers. I'm going to put this out as a poll to say what you would rather see. I was planning on the next live stream, which is going to be next Tuesday. We're going to have another video coming up on Thursday.
So we're not doing live stream Thursday.
No live stream Thursday, but there's another video that is going to be coming out instead. And the next live stream next week, and I am sorry, I'm going to have to get rid of comments. The next live stream that's coming out next week is going to be planned to be the 2001 version of the Planet of the Apes. However, this has received so low views, and I'm wondering if it'd be better to do a more popular one, and that is the Three-Body Problem. Now, the Three-Body Problems mini-series on Netflix, it just came out, I believe, last month. It has 8 episodes. The problem that I'm wrestling with is, even though it is popular and a lot of people are looking at it, it'd be good to cover. There's a lot of violence in it. So is the violence, does it go over the line with it? Things like that.
I don't know. I've only watched the first episode.
And that was one of the violence scenes.
They had a violent execution at the very beginning. That's not a spoiler of that one because it happens within the first 10 minutes of the video. I think it was to set up the environment, and I think that it might be fine the way it was. And it still could have been much more violent as far as gore goes, but it was definitely.
Yeah. So the question is, where do you cross the line on that? If it to say, listen, I want to be careful what I'm feeding my mind, feeding my soul in watching this. It's just over the top, like gratuitous sex, gratuitous violence, something that's just so. And we've crossed we've had another video where we're talking about where do you draw that line, and it's a difficult thing to mark. And it may be more individualistic. What's going to draw you ultimately? What's going to draw you closer to God, and what won't? And so, with this one, it was a possibility. I also was contemplating doing Fallout, but I pretty much have decided no. That does cross the line. Although that's a popular one, it might be a good one to do. It just it gets to be too much. So I would enjoy your feedback on this with this poll going out to say, which one would you prefer to see, the 2001 Planet of the Apes, or to see the Three-Body Problem miniseries on Netflix, to do a review on that? So I'll leave that up to you guys. So until then, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.